Welcome back, everybody. We're here with the In the Flat podcast. I'm your host, Tony Kill, joined as always by Jess and Jordan. A great week one. It was, I would say, much better than the week 0 game. So I have a lot to talk about this week with some really good week one contests. We had some good matchups that lived up to the hype, some that didn't, some teams that surprised, some that disappointed. So we'll get to all that this week. But first, let's kick it off with a week one look back here. Starting off with our top 5 games of the week as we previewed. So I'll jump into these and then let's talk a little bit about each one. So we'll start off first with Georgia. Number 1 Georgia won 34-3 over number 14 Clemson. I would say, to me, this is a pretty decent game for a half to 2.5 quarters. Then Georgia just turned it on and won this. I would say Georgia's defense looked good. Clemson's defense looked good for about a half, but Clemson's offense did not look good. Cade Klubnik is continuing not to have the answers at only 142 yards and an interception. To me, Carson Beck looked okay. I expected more from him at another year starting here with only 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, but it was against a good Clemson defense. I think that the news that came out of this beforehand was Etienne, the starting running back for Georgia, ended up being suspended, so they had to go to true freshman Nate Frazier, who ended up doing pretty well, 83 yards and a touchdown here. Overall, again, good win for Georgia there, that, I guess, neutral site contest there in Atlanta. But what did you guys think of this one? Jess, we'll start with you. What are you thinking of Georgia's win here over Clemson?
I think it was a very impressive win by Georgia to win that dominantly. Like you said, it was a defensive battle for the first 2.5 quarters or so. I think we're going to learn a lot more about Clemson in the next few weeks than we will about Georgia. Everybody expected Georgia to be great. I don't think anybody had Georgia missing the playoffs. People like me had them essentially finishing second to Texas, but no one had Georgia as even a fringe playoff. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be great. I think over the past 4 years, they've only lost 2 regular season games, both to Nick Saban. So the fact that they won this game doesn't tell me much. That I'm the guy here that had Clemson winning the ACC. That pick is not looking very good right now. Cade Klubnik, I had expected him to take some step forwards, and while it's going to be hard to truly gauge where someone is at coming into the season week 1 against what's probably going to be the best defense in all of college football, he did not look good. The entire offense did not look good. They could not pick up anything. It felt like if they were in anything beyond 3rd and 2, just punt it.
Yeah.
So I think Clemson, we're going to really see, is it just that they're not in the Georgia tier? Or have they truly gone the way of those late 2000 to early 2010 Texas teams where they had a streak of great quarterback play, and then all of a sudden, despite being able to recruit these 5 stars, they're just not panning out? We went from Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, to now DJ and Cade Klubnik. Clearly 2 different groups there, 2 different tiers of quarterback. So Clemson really needs to figure that out.
Jordan, what do you think here about this game?
I'll keep it short and sweet because just talked a lot. I just think it's another Dabo not going to that transfer portal. It's another where they're not getting better. They're staying the same. We're going to see the same Clemson we saw last year. We see this year. Nothing's changing. Cade didn't step up. They got a new offensive coordinator. It didn't look like it panned out enough to be able to put up points. But big win for Georgia. Yeah, it was a second half kind of adjustments they made. Their next biggest test is against Alabama in the next 3 weeks. So right now, I think Georgia is the best team. Just they have the best defense. Their offense looked consistent enough. Until someone challenges them and beats them, I still think Georgia's number 1. And probably right now, they don't play Texas until later on in the season. So right now, I think Georgia has that mindset that they're number 1, and they're still going to be that number 1 team.
I have to disagree with you there, Jordan. I don't think it's because of the transfer portal. I've listened to everybody talk about this. It's the number 1 thing. It was, First Take, Get Up. Everybody is lambasting Dabo Swinney for his lack of transfer portal usage, however it was. But if you look at, they were ranked like 4th or 5th in composite talent score last year. They're 5th this year. I don't think it's because they're not using the transfer portal. They probably could have gotten some depth that would have helped them out a bit towards the end there, where clearly the defense was tiring out because the offense couldn't get anything done. But I think it's far more about the quarterback situation. Maybe they need some more skill guys who can just get open. I don't know if you heard what was it, like Rodney White was saying about Clemson. He was saying that the offense
they have too many white people.
Too many white guys on offense to be explosive, and I don't know if that's it necessarily, but they could use some more talent on the offensive side of the ball. But I don't know if just because, look at Colorado, look at Florida State. These are teams where they're really relying on the transfer portal. But
look at Georgia. Georgia got 11 players out of the transfer portal this year, and they're still competing. That's the thing. How many
of those guys are the starters, though?
But how many guys do we see that are 5 stars that go into college football and are dominant freshman year? How many do we see? So if you're getting 5 stars or 4-star recruits at Clemson, yeah, great. But you're not
to be able to develop that talent, because I'm not talking just about the freshmen here. It's total composite. Like, how much talent is on the roster?
Okay,
and
true.
They're still top 5.
Yes, that's true. But here's the thing. Look at the Notre Dames, Ohio States. Those guys are not using the transfer portal to fill their entire team up like Colorado and some of those teams are. What they're doing is they're taking, I have these holes, I'm going to fill them with a transfer portal person. Like, for example, both Ohio State and Notre Dame got quarterbacks. Then Ohio State got a safety, number 1 safety. They're really good now because of the safety position. Notre Dame, they were missing wide receivers. They went out and got the receivers they need to make that a better team. I feel like here, if you're looking at Clemson, they have a great team on paper, but what they need is to fill in with holes. They don't have a dynamic number 1 wide receiver. With who you are as Clemson, you should be able to go out and get a wide receiver that can at least be a top tier number 1 and number 2 wide receiver to make this offense roll a little more. Or really, if you saw what Cade Klubnik did last year, I would have said, I'm not sure about him. I'm going to bring someone in to push him at the quarterback position. Because I feel like, yeah, you have a lot of young guys on the team that could do something, but they haven't proven it. Go out there and use 5 transfers. They're the only team outside of the military academies not using the transfer portal. That's why everybody's on Dabo Swinney, because he's not using it at all. Go out and get 5 people that can make the team better.
Granted, they didn't get a lot, but Dabo has brought in. He brought in a couple guys the year before. He brought in a couple guys the year before that.
But zero this year. It's 0 transfer, 0 people. You got to have some holes on your team. His issue is he feels like he recruits better than anybody in the country, and he doesn't feel like anybody's going to be better to his players. He needs to look in the mirror and say, listen, I made a miss on some of these positions. I need to fill in with some transfer portal players. I'm not saying he needs to go out there and get like 20 transfer portal players. I'm thinking if you get 5 starters that can make this team better, or hey, get a couple 3 or 4 backups that will be good depth pieces that will help you improve. That's what he needs to go out and do. But he's just stubborn and doesn't want to do it, and I think that's hurting him. Ultimately, I do.
I think the big thing for them is just the quarterback, though. Could they have
their run game didn't look good either?
Like a Riley Leonard or something to improve that position, they could have. But at the same time, if a guy has one bad year and then you immediately turn to the transfer, you got to think about what kind of signal that sends out to
but
the rest of your team.
It's not even that. You can go to the transfer portal and get a Riley Leonard or get someone, and that might light a fire under Cade Klubnik to actually get better. But there's no one behind him.
Here's the thing: Ohio State and Notre Dame and some of those top teams, they don't. Look, Oregon, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, all top 10 teams, right? They didn't care about the young players behind them. They want to make competition the best it could possibly be. So they're going to go out in the portal. They're going to get a top tier player. Where, like Jordan said, if they're going to push them and the young guys comes up and beats them, that's great. If they don't, then you have someone there. I remember a couple years ago, Notre Dame went into the season with Tyler Buck as their quarterback, because that's what Brian Kelly left them with. They could have went out to the portal, but they didn't want to upset the young guys in the quarterback room. Guess what happened? That quarterback room sucked that year, and that team sucked that year. You have to go out and get those players. and push your team to be the best it possibly can be. You don't want to just upset players. They got to know this is a competitive world. We're going to bring people in to either make you better or make the team better. And that's what I just feel like he's not doing that.
Yeah, we're in the college football world where if you don't do that, you're at a loss, and that's what Clemson is right now.
All right.
Next up, our last game of the week, Notre Dame over Texas A&M. I will say, I was at the game. Great atmosphere. I think Texas A&M, they were loud. I will say, I didn't know how loud they would be, but my watch was going off nonstop of over 110 decibels. And it was like pretty insane that you could hear anything around you. But it was a great atmosphere. I felt Notre Dame won this one 23-13. I felt like coming in, everybody said they're going to lose because of the offensive linemen. And I felt the offensive linemen they did well. They didn't allow any sacks. Towards the second half of the game, they started pushing back on that defensive line, and that's when the running game started coming alive. And I think Notre Dame, they came in with the game plan. They weren't going to pass it down the field. It was going to be quick passes all night. That's why you had Riley Leonard with 158 yards passing, 63 yards rushing. It was just about taking care of those offensive players, not making mistakes, not throwing turnovers. On the opposite side, Connor Wigman only threw for 100 yards, had 2 interceptions. They tried to throw it downfield, but I mean you can't throw it on this secondary. So they weren't successful. So hey, just because I'm there as a fan doesn't mean anything. I will say, I just felt like you don't throw it on Benjamin Morrison. You just don't do that. It's a terrible mistake if you do. And then I just felt like the pieces around them, the linebacker crew has been younger but more explosive for Notre Dame. I do want to call out Texas A&M's defensive line. I felt like that was probably one of the better defensive lines I've ever seen. They got after it all night and made things hell for the running backs and for Riley Leonard there on the Notre Dame side. So they gave it all. But I think eventually Texas A&M will probably need to make a change at quarterback. They have a young guy on their team that's more athletic, that can run the ball a little more. I think that's probably what they need for this team because I don't see a dynamic number one receiver for Texas A&M right now. They have a bunch of 2 and 3s that are not. If you match up against a good cornerback group like this, it's going to be really hard for you to get things going. But yeah, what you guys saw on TV. So start you, Jordan. What did you think of this performance from Notre Dame, and what do you think of Texas A&M?
I'll start with Texas. I think Texas A&M, like you said, they're getting that quarterback. I think that'll help a lot. They have a good defense. They have a really good defense. They played so well. The offensive line for Notre Dame had a lot of work cut out for them. The biggest thing for me is Notre Dame just looked sloppy. They had 11 penalties that game. A lot of just sloppiness in a lot of different areas. Yeah. But I think down the stretch, Notre Dame's got a couple easy games to get those offensive linemen into more of a cohesion group. But they did turn it around after the fourth quarter. Into the fourth quarter, they had a better game plan. The offensive line, like you said, started pushing back. I just think Texas A&M started getting tired. And Notre Dame took advantage of that. Offensive line pushed back, a lot of rushing yards. I think the biggest thing with Notre Dame is Riley Leonard he just can't tackle him. He escapes. He can extend plays. I think I was listening to something they were talking about. I even punt it anymore. If Riley Leonard could extend a play to get that first down, if you're 4th and 2, no matter where you are in the field, he's going to get you that first down majority of the time.
Unless the replay says he did cross the line when he's like a foot past the line.
And then you look at it, yeah. But I think Notre Dame offensively, it was hard to play against Texas A&M. Throw the ball, it's loud. That's a lot. Some of the penalties, it's just loud. That's like you said, Tony. It's a loud stadium. It's hard to play. Even if if Notre Dame was unranked and Texas A&M was unranked, the stadium would be as loud as that was. But I think Notre Dame took a huge step this year. Riley Leonard is a good part to that, and I think there was a big win. Especially, I thought it was going to be a little closer, but Notre Dame's defense really stepped up, and we could have saw a 3rd pick at the end of the game. It was right there. But Huge win. Texas A&M is, like I said, one part away, and that quarterback is the huge thing that they. And
I would say they're recruit. I saw a lot of fans from Texas A&M bashing Mike Elko already. His first game as head coach of Texas A&M. I feel like he's going to have that defense playing like this every week. Got to give him a little bit of time to get the right pieces. He's inheriting whatever was left from Jimbo Fisher. I think he needs to get the right quarterback, the right wide receiver pieces, and his star running back is out for the season too, so I think you got to give him a little slack there. So I wouldn't be as hard on him. And I think some people just don't like the fact that they lost to Notre Dame and Texas A&M, and it's not a place that they like to lose. But that's another story. Jess, what did you think of the game?
I thought I wasn't blown away by either team, but I think this is a very big win for Notre Dame. I think this is going to be potentially like your most important win, that you're able to get over this hump because of the youth that had to start on the offensive line going up against what might be one of the best defensive lines in all of college football. Florida State, I think, is your next tough game, and at least as of right now, from what we've seen from them, you should win that, and then you end the season with USC, and I think they were more impressive than we really thought, but I think as a team, Notre Dame is a better team than LSU. So I think the fact that you guys went in, got the win, wasn't the prettiest, but you did what you needed to do. Tough football. I think you guys have shown that you can compete with just about anybody. You have the talent. Is this year you finally get it done? Time will tell, but I think you definitely have what it takes to go undefeated this year and get that 5th seed.
Okay, sounds good. So let's move on to the next few big games here. Miami beat Florida. First of my many incorrect predictions coming up here. So Miami beat Florida 41-17. I'm just flabbergasted that Florida looked as bad as they looked, but Cam Ward did not look bad. He had 385 yards, 3 touchdowns, I think a touchdown rushing, 33 rushing yards. Looked really good here. I think Graham Mertz did not, 91 yards, interception. I think he said he got maybe a concussion in this game as well, right, Jordan? So, again, I'm not surprised, I guess, that Miami won. I guess I'm surprised that they beat them this bad in the swamp. Like, I just wasn't expecting it. But, hey, I know, Jess, I think you called this one a little bit. So we'll let you talk here about this win and how you think Miami showed in this game.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I think that while teams like Florida State and Florida, I think they actually, if you look at the talent composite rankings, they're above Miami. But the difference was the quarterback. Cam Ward played fantastic. He had that one bizarre interception decision, I think it was in the first quarter, where he really got fancy with it. It looked like he rolled out, he tried to sidearm it, and he kept doing that sidearm pass. After that first interception, it seemed to be working.
It was across his body. He threw it across his body.
There were some. He's plenty talented, and I was very impressed that after he threw that interception, it seemed like his heartbeat never went above, 50, 60 beats per minute, whatever the normal heart rate. He was not shaken at all playing in the swamp. I think right now, despite me having picked Clemson to win the ACC, Miami just looks like the best team. The ACC looked really disappointing in week 1, and I guess week 0. But Miami looks like they could win this conference handedly. Like I was saying about Clemson, if they can figure out the quarterback, they've got the talent. Miami seems like they have the quarterback and they have the talent. I don't know if they're going to be able to stack up with a Georgia or an Ohio State, but they look
Now, before we get too far ahead here in Miami, they were playing a Florida team that looks like they gave up already on this season. Yeah. Do you feel like, will it look different when they go against, say, Clemson or a Florida State or even like a Georgia Tech? The ACC is terrible, but I think for the most part, the ACC, I agree. But do we feel like if they go up to somebody with a little better defense, that they'll have the same type of performance? Do we feel like its performance was because of Florida or because of Miami? I guess is what I'm asking.
I think it was both. I don't know about you, Jordan, but I think it was both. That Miami has the talent, and now they have the quarterback to go with the talent. But I'm not sure. I'm still not 100% sure if it was confirmed that the image was real. But you had there was this image that was going around after the game of a Florida player in the locker room after the game. He was showing the bird to his Snapchat, and then it was captioned "F this team," and If they've
I
already
totally
lost
missed
him-
that, so I don't know if that's real or not. So.
Yeah, it was going around. It wasn't a good look, but I think it was one of those things where I think Miami is going. I don't think Miami is going to be as good as they looked, but I don't think they would be looking that much worse against a better defense. I don't know about you, Jordan.
No, I think Miami has. This was the first real test for them. They have Florida State. They don't play Clemson this year. They have a home game against Florida State. I think Cam Ward was their answer this year. The interception, I think, was a fluke. They only punted twice this whole game. They took control right away, and I think the biggest reason is the same thing I say about Riley Leonard, extending plays. Cam Ward extends plays. He doesn't. He makes mistakes here and there, but he extends those plays and makes the team offensively better in the sense that now they don't have a quarterback that can't get out of the pocket, and that's what Cam Ward is. He put up big numbers against Florida at the Swamp, where it's the same thing as playing at Texas A&M. It's loud, humid. You can't hear yourself breathe, talk. And I think Xavier Respirito, I'm not even going to try anymore. He put up big numbers. He was part of the ACC first team last year. Put 120 or 12 yards with 1 touchdown. I think he's going to be big for Cam Ward, and I just think that Miami has a huge path to the ACC championship and even winning it.
All right. All right, moving ahead. Let's talk about Penn State in their 34-12 win over West Virginia. Just let me down. Why do I bet on West Virginia? Any Virginia team, I'm just going to stop talking about them at this point. But Drew Aller was 11 of 17 for 216 yards, 3 touchdowns. Nicholas Singletary ran for 114. So, yeah, a decent game here for Penn State. For what I'm reading, everybody is just on the Penn State bandwagon at this point. It seems like a lot of national media is thinking that this is the year Penn State takes the step forward and wins one of those big games. Start with you, Jordan. What, do you think this is based on this performance, or it's Penn State taking that next step? Are they moving forward?
I don't think so. I think it's the same thing we see always. Penn State is going to be losing to the teams they always lose to. I watched some of this game live, and it was right before half, and Drew Aller threw a 55-yard pass to score basically before the half, and they showed replay, and the receiver pushed the guy out of his way, and they didn't throw a flag. So I think just a lot of things didn't go West Virginia's way on certain things, but I think Penn State did take a step forward in a sense, but it's West Virginia. I don't know what a step forward against West Virginia really is. They did look better than I thought, better than Tony thought, everybody. Just so you know, Tony did pick West Virginia to win.
I did.
Just going to repeat that.
Hey.
But Drew Aller did the same thing last year. So I don't know. This is not a game that I could really tell. If they were playing Ohio State early in the season and they did this, then yeah, it's different. They still have to beat those better teams. It's like Ole Miss. They have to beat those Alabamas, Georgias, before I can say that they're 100% back or 100% there. So yeah. I think Penn State doesn't play anyone.
Don't play anybody.
USC.
That's what, October 12th?
They play Ohio State.
They don't play anybody to USC.
And Ohio State
October
November
12th.
2nd.
Yeah, but look, they play Bowling Green,
Yeah.
Kent State, Illinois, UCLA, and then they finally get to USC. That's gonna be a tougher game than people probably thought. So that's gonna be a tough game.
I know, Tony, you're going to say probably not, but honestly, I could see that Purdue game at Purdue being a tougher game than you think later on in the season. Purdue,
not happening.
I think Purdue looked good this weekend, man.
Hey, I don't judge some of these teams until they play somebody up a poll. Hopefully, as a Purdue alum, I hope they're better than I think, but I think they're going to be terrible.
The next game they play against someone with a poll is Notre Dame.
We'll see how good they are then. All right, let's move ahead because due time here. Let's finish this up with LSU USC. Obviously, the game Monday night or Sunday night. Sorry, if I can get my days. So USC won 27-20. Miller Moss looked pretty good. Just went 378 yards and a touchdown. Their running back Mark 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. Gary Nussmeier actually looked pretty good for LSU as well. 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Overall, I thought this was a pretty nice back-and-forth game. I don't know what to think of either of these teams. I know Brian Kelly was very angry with his team, pounding the table after the fact that it's his fault for not coaching well, but then he blames players. You know how he usually does. USC, I think they played better defense than they did last year. And you don't know if their defense is really data-proof or if LSU just struggled a bit than they should. I don't know. We'll see as the year goes along here. But sorry, you, Jess, you follow USC pretty closely. What did you think of this USC performance?
Yeah, I'm so invested in USC, being that I live in New Jersey, literally the other
Well,
side.
you always talk about them, so I
country.
figured you just follow them on an ongoing basis.
I talked about Caleb a lot. All right, but
And who's your favorite player? Was like
Yeah,
Reggie
no,
Bush,
I
and then you
growing up when I did, all right, we don't have time for my
we don't.
whole college football
We really don't.
backstory.
I don't know why you got started on that. Cool.
Yeah, it's, you know me, rambling on and on. But I was both impressed and not impressed by both teams. It's week 1, so I imagine both teams are going to look a bit better down the line. Like, Ohio State didn't look great in the first half or so. Oregon, who I think we're talking about all these games in a little bit, but all these teams working out their issues in week 1. They're going to have a lot more tape. They're going to have real tape to go over now going into week 2. But I think both of these teams are going to even out to be in that second, third tier of teams, or maybe they're fringe playoffs, but they're clearly like just not quite there with the top teams. I think USC having a better defense is going to be very big for them. I was very impressed. I had predicted LSU to win this game off of the back of that. I thought Nussmeier would have a lot of time to work from the pocket, being that LSU has, I think, the best, either the first or second best left tackle, and I think they have the consensus best right tackle in all of college football right now, at least according to early projections and PFF scores. But the USC's defense, it's definitely not nothing. The fact that USC gets to avoid Oregon, who else did we say they were avoiding? Ohio State.
Yeah.
Or are they avoiding them?
Yep, they are.
Yeah. So they're avoiding, like, the top dogs in the Big Ten. Maybe they get on a run. Maybe they go on a roll and they end up in the Big Ten championship game through luck. I think that Penn State USC game is going to be really big. I think that's going to determine more or less the third and fourth place teams in the Big Ten. But I thought both quarterbacks played well. But I didn't have either of these teams in the playoffs, and I don't think that's going to change.
I honestly, my mind has changed a bit on USC because they play a little bit of defense. And looking at their schedule, I feel like if they get past Penn State, they're in the Big Ten championship game. Because I feel like they'll beat out Oregon. But that's just me and my Oregon hate.
Tony,
I guess.
man, it's that Michigan. Don't forget they play Michigan too, guys.
Yeah,
At the big house.
I know. I was high on
week
Michigan
1.
last week, but after seeing them, I'm not as high as my.
It's week 1.
I
so
think
we can't write off
I
Michigan
think we will know for
but that was not a
100%,
pretty performance.
100% week 2, Michigan, Texas. Then we'll know what Michigan is.
Yeah, if they put up a fight, even if they
I don't
lose,
even know about
you know.
that.
But
I mean, I think you guys are a bit higher on Michigan. Tony, especially, was
Tony
higher
loves
on
Michigan.
than I was, but like if they go out and then they get smacked around by Texas, that's not going to tell me. I don't think that's really going to tell me much of anything.
Yeah, if they get
Because
smacked
I
around by
expect
Texas
to be one of the 4 best teams.
But
I have Texas in the championship.
But if they're close, even for 3 quarters against Texas, then it's different.
That would be something, yeah. But if Michigan goes out there and it ends up being like what Georgia did to Clemson, where maybe they keep it close for the first half, and then when the second half Texas really just runs away with it, I don't feel like that's going to tell me much about Michigan. So I think I just have Michigan as, right now, I think the 5th, 6th team in the Big Ten right now.
Wow. Okay.
I think they're too talented to fall to the
5th or 6th team in the Big Ten. Okay. Who's I don't know who the 2 teams ahead of them would be on that point. But
Rutgers.
Okay, we'll get Rutgers, yeah. That's right. I forgot Rutgers was in the league. You're right.
Maybe it's not impossible.
It's not.
Impossible.
Everybody gets lucky year every once in a while. All right, let's move ahead here.
Rutgers beat Michigan their first year in the Big Ten. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, feels like decades ago at this point. All right.
It was a decade ago.
Let's talk about some of the other games. I'll quickly run through them and maybe a little color commentary to some of them, but run through them. We're going to do a little bit of buying and selling some of the directions of some of these teams here. Let's start on Thursday night. Missouri scored 51 in their rout of Murray State, 51-0. That's how you beat a bad team. You don't play with them the whole game and then pull away at the very end. You just beat them. That's what you're supposed to do, Jess. Utah, they scored 49 in a win over Southern Utah. It's a nice win there for Utah. Cam Rising had 5 touchdowns, 254 yards. It's nice having Utah back with an actual quarterback playing the position and everybody seemed pretty healthy. So, again, my Utah prediction there for the Big 12 still looks good to me. Kansas beat Lindenwood, apparently that's a college, 48-3. So, good win for Kansas there. North Carolina State, we've been pretty high in North Carolina State. They scared us a little bit first half, but they did end up pulling away, winning 38-21 over Western Carolina. But as I bet you guys in chat, I think this is just what North Carolina State does. It feels like every year that first 1 or 2 games, they just struggle. Sometimes they lose a bad game. Sometimes they just hold on and barely win, but then they just continue to improve the rest of the year. So I think that's what's going to happen here.
See, because they don't. NC State does not need to win every game, just every conference game.
Very true. They can just go lose all their non-conference, still in the playoffs. So that's very true. But Grayson McCall ended up 318 yards, 3 touchdowns. I'm interested to see how he improves with this offense because I feel like at one point he was one of the better quarterbacks. And then last year he really struggled with injuries. I want to see how he does the rest of this year. But decent start there for North Carolina State. Friday night, you had Oklahoma with a 51-3 win over Temple. Jackson Arnold, I expected more, but he didn't really have to do much. He had 141 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he did his work and got out. Saturday night, you had Ohio State winning 52-6 against Akron. I watched the first half of this game, and I was not impressed with how Ohio State played. Now, they ended up pulling away, obviously, in the second half and did really well. But they did. Last year, I think we talked about it many times on the podcast. One thing about Ohio State last year is they always started slow. Every team had a chance in the first half, and then they used their talent to pull away. And I felt like that's what they did here. I expected more just because they brought in all the transfers and there's a lot of people come back, and I just felt like this is going to be a veteran team that would have happened, but something to keep an eye on as we go through the season. Oregon, man, barn burner, 24-14 over Idaho. Yeah, tough Idaho. Those are always a tough out. Dylan Gabriel had 380 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm just going to throw out there. I keep saying I didn't think Dylan Gabriel could lead this team to multiple playoff wins, and this adds to my arsenal there, guys. I know you guys have a different opinion, but that's my feelings there. Texas scored 52 in their win over Colorado State. They look good. Quinn Ewers, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. The great Arch Manning came in for 95 yards and a touchdown. Decent performance there for Texas over Colorado State. They have the big one, as we talked about, against Michigan next week. Alabama beat the crap out of Western Kentucky. They went 63-0, I think was the score. Jalen Monroe looked very similar. He only threw it 7 out of 9 times for 200 yards. You would expect him to throw more, but I guess you don't need to. You don't need to. Had 79 yards rushing as well. Ole Miss scored 76 in their win against Furman. And Jackson Dart had 6 first-half touchdowns. It was 22-27 for 418 yards, so great performance there. We talked a little bit about Michigan. They struggled a bit here at Fresno State. It was a close game in the second half until they were able to pull away a bit. I would say the one thing we were talked about before that we would be concerned about is the running game. Jonathan Edwards only had 11 carries for 27 yards. You just suspect nothing else if the quarterback position needs time to develop that you would be able to line up with that offensive line and run the football. They were not able to do that. I don't know if that's on Donovan Edwards, the offensive line, or play calling, but something to keep an eye on. They go to Texas. As Texas comes to them next week. Tennessee won 69-3 over Chattanooga. Nico had 314 yards and 3 touchdowns. Good performance by him. Oklahoma State won 44-20 over South Dakota State. Ollie Gordon, 27 carries, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. Good performance there. Kansas State, 41-6 win over UT Martin. Avery Johnson looked pretty good, 153 yards and 2 touchdowns. Arizona won I would say a pretty thrilling game against New Mexico, 61-39, high scoring. That Pac-12 after dark feel to it for sure. But Fifta had 422 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. So I think Arizona's just going to have to outscore people. I don't think their defense is going to be there this year. Iowa scored the most I think they ever scored in history, and I don't know if that's true, but they scored 40 points in their win over Illinois State. Cade McNamara had 251 yards and 3 touchdowns. I bet Michigan wishes they still had him because their quarterback did not look as good. And then some game of 5 teams that we obviously have talked about for the playoff. Boise State won 56-45 over Georgia Southern. Of note here, Ashton Genty had 20 carries for 267 yards and 6 touchdowns. Great performance. If you had college fantasy going, you hoped you had him because he had a great day. And then Liberty, 41-24 for Campbell. Good performance for Liberty. With that, let's go a little round robin here with buy or sell. We talked a little bit about North Carolina State. And over the last couple weeks, we've talked about their chances of winning ACC with Grayson McCall, that offense and that defense coming together. Based on the performance this week, what are their chances? Are you buying or selling or holding on North Carolina State? We'll start you, Jess.
I'm selling. Honestly, I think that's more just about how good Miami looked rather than NC State. Like we were going to be talking about in a few more of these, and as been said, it was week 1. They got the win. They pulled it out. I'm not going to hold too much against them, although it did raise some concerns. I'm selling NC State winning the ACC. I think it's going to come down to Miami, Clemson.
Jordan.
Oh, I'm gonna stay neutral because buy them. I already bought them.
You can't send them back now. It's a no return policy.
Hey, I still am high. I think first game, like we just said, first week is always weird. I don't know what it is. Teams getting used to playing actually a competitive game. They only got Clemson this year, and if they get the Clemson that Georgia got, I can see NC State somehow pulling it out. I'm buying. Keeping, never returning NC State all the way, baby. Never changing my bracket. Grayson McCall for ACC Player of the Year.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to say Heisman.
I was about to say Heisman. Okay.
Nope.
I'm gonna hold NC State. They play Tennessee next week, and so I want to see how they do against Tennessee next week. And if they perform well there, then I'm gonna either buy or sell at that point. Jackson Arnold, next one. Jackson Arnold, being the quarterback that Oklahoma needs to compete in the SEC based on his performance. So, Jordan, are you buying or selling Jackson Arnold being that quarterback that Oklahoma needs?
I'm selling. I didn't see enough. I'm going to hold. I'm not going to sell. I'm going to hold because I didn't see enough. He didn't pass enough. It was a dominant performance at home for Oklahoma. I need to see more. I think we won't see really anything. They tell you Tulane next week. Or Houston next week. We won't really see a lot of what Jackson Arnold really is until Tennessee later on this month. I'm gonna hold with Oklahoma. I think Jackson Arnold could be that guy, but he needs to even put up more numbers and they need to let him sling the ball more, or we need to see him against a better team.
All right, Jess, what about you, sir?
Yeah, pretty much the same. It was against Temple.
Yes.
Temple.
It was Western Carolina. Wasn't it?
It wasn't like
this was Temple.
Furman like Ole Miss did. It's not like they played Furman or Arkansas Pine Bluff like Arkansas did. But Temple, that really didn't give me any answers. Like he went out there, he was efficient, did well. Let's see it against some better competition.
Yeah, I'm selling. I don't see it. I see Cape Club all over again. They played in very similar areas. I just see the same thing, but I'm selling. Ohio State being the favorite to win the title. This is going to be interesting. So, Jess, are you buying or selling Ohio State being the favorite? I think you picked them to win. Did you not?
Yeah, I can't exactly buy anymore, and I'm not selling right now. Slow start. Did what they needed to do. I need to see a bit more from Will Howard, but it wasn't like it was bad enough that I'm feeling you need to sell all of a sudden. So I'm just staying pat with Ohio State.
Jordan.
I'm selling. I didn't see enough out of that run game. They talk about all this. They have Trevon Henderson, Quinton Jenkins, and they both didn't even rush for over 100 yards. One had 65, one had 55. I need to see more out of that run game. That should have been their thing. If Will Howard is not going to be the best quarterback they've ever had, so I'm going to sell. I just didn't see enough out of that run game.
All right. I am selling. I think they're just too much of a finesse team, as I mentioned. I do think they'll still win the Big Ten, but I don't know if they just have to change the play calling. I don't know who that is. I know Chip Kelly is there. I thought he would change things up and make it more run-oriented and really lean on those guys. But I think eventually they're going to have to move to Julian's saying, the young freshman quarterback that's on the bench. If they can move to him, I'll feel more comfortable with them going all the way here. But until then, I'm going to have to sell. All right. Oregon's ability to win in the playoff. Jordan, I'll start with you. Are you buying or selling?
I can't sell them. I'm going to keep it even because I have them winning the national championship this year.
You better get that return on investment there, sir.
I don't think so. Dylan Gabriel still had a great game, threw for 380 yards, 41 and 49. I still think they still got it. I think it's hard to pick on the first week, but yeah, I think Oregon still got this.
All right, Jess, you agree?
I don't have them winning at all, but I do have them making it decently far in the playoffs. Yeah, I can't. I'm not gonna buy anymore because if I buy anymore, I feel like that means I'm like seeing them making it to the championship, which I don't. But I still think they'll be able to win at least a playoff game, if not multiple, depending on where they finish in the Big Ten. Yeah, I'm gonna stay pat with them. I think they're a playoff team. I think they'll win at least a playoff game, and I don't have much to take away from Week 1. Week 1 was weird. It was
yeah. No, I agree. I'm selling. Give me $1. I'll have them. All right.
I agree. I'm selling.
Yes, we already talked about it. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. I already get my views on Oregon. They're terrible. I'll move on. No, they're not terrible. I'm just saying I just don't see it with the quarterback. That's all I'm saying there. Maybe they'll prove over the next few games. We'll see. All right. Ole Miss having the best offense in the country. So start you, Jordan. What are you saying here? Best offense? Buy or sell?
I'm buying. I think they scored 76. I think they're going to score 55 to 60 points a game. They literally play LSU, who we just saw average.
Oh, those cornerbacks are not going to be able to stop this team, I will say.
They play Georgia. They could score 10 against Georgia, but 55, 60 against everybody else and still be fine. So I think they're going to have the best offense just due to the fact that their schedule is bad.
Jess, do you agree?
I don't know. With the schedule, I think that could definitely be beneficial to them, but I don't know if I'm going to buy into that level of stock with Ole Miss just yet. They played Furman. Can anybody name where Furman is?
South Carolina.
Yeah. Furman, South Carolina. Come on, bro.
I grew up in Georgia. You should know that. You went to East Carolina, man. Come on.
I've never even heard of Furman until a few years ago, and I didn't know that was a school. It's not like I was invested in. I went to North Carolina. I don't know where Furman is. But either way, they don't have a good football team. 76-0. Maybe they'll. If Ole Miss can, over the next couple of weeks, consistently put up, even against slightly better competition, I'll start buying into that. But I don't have any stock in it, so I'm going to be staying neutral because I can't sell.
Boo.
Boo. Yeah, I don't have a boo thing. I'll just do this instead. All right, moving ahead here. Tennessee being back to being one of the best teams in the country with their new quarterback. Thinking back to when they had Hendon Hooker and they were rolling. That's what I'm thinking here. Are you buying or selling that they're back to that level of a team? Start with you, Jess.
Again, I don't want to be hypocritical because, again, it's not like I think they played Chattanooga. So it's not like they played some crazy competition and still looked that good. But I'm going to stay neutral, but I think them being a top 15 to borderline playoff team, I think that is more likely than Ole Miss having the highest scoring offense in the country. So if they look this good against NC State, that I'm going to start buying.
All right. Jordan, what about you, sir? What do you think?
I'm buying. I think Nico's going to be a better Hendon Hooker, more accurate. Their team looks a little better this year than when it was Hendon Hooker. They can run the ball with running backs, actually. So
it's really foreign concept.
Yeah, guys, just so you know, they can run the if I remember correctly, when it was Hendon Hooker, they couldn't run the ball. It was a lot of just passing, and I think they're getting to the point where they're going to be consistent, and I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the country. But the schedule is going to be rough. They play NC State, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia. They got a tough SEC. ACC mixed schedule in there. But I think if they can come out with losing 2 of those games, they're still going to be one of the best teams in the country because it's going to be losing to Alabama, but it's home for them, and then losing away at Georgia.
All right. On hold, I want to agree with. I want to see what they do in the next couple of weeks. Get some of these tougher opponents, but I think they're moving in the right direction for sure. Now, will they get back to where they're scoring as much as they were Penn Hooker? Maybe not, but to your point, I think they'll have more well-rounded offense or team to go with that. So, may have a better opportunity to be better than they were before. All right, let's talk quickly here as we're running out of time. Our picks for Heisman. So I think in the past we talked a little bit about our picks. So I'll pass it over to you, Jordan. Who's your favorite? Who's your long shot to win the Heisman?
So my favorite right now is Cam Ward. I think he really blew his up with his performance against Florida. Right now on BetMGM, he's third with plus 950. I just think that if he continues to be elusive and healthy, that's the biggest question mark. Is all these quarterbacks, if they're elusive, are they going to stay healthy? That's the biggest thing for me. He had 385 yards, 3 touchdowns this game. My biggest long shot is Aston Genty. 6 touchdowns, 267 yards. If he can continue these performances, not 6 touchdowns, but 2 or 3, and a good 100, 150 yards a game around their averaging, I think he's going to be, he could squeeze in there. So those are my 2.
All right. Jess, how about you? What's your favorite? What's your long shot?
I think I'm taking Jackson Dart. He's currently plus 1,000 as my favorite. We just talked about Ole Miss. I don't necessarily believe they'll have the highest scoring, but I do think he's going to be putting up some monster numbers against the likes of Middle Tennessee, Georgia Southern. I think he can do it against Florida and Arkansas. And again, being an SEC quarterback, there's going to be some bias there. I think he's going to be able to put up good enough numbers. I think Ole Miss is going to be a good enough team that his name is definitely going to be in that conversation. And I think maybe if the likes of Jalen Monroe, Quinn Ewers don't put up those kinds of numbers, then I think he could easily run away with it. My long shot, I have the wide receiver out of Arizona, Tetaroya McMillan. Started off the year with, I think it was 10 receptions for 304 yards, and all 4 of Arizona's passing touchdowns were caught by him. I think we've seen a wide receiver, Devontae Smith, win the Heisman a couple of years ago. I think he could have that kind of season. I think he's going to be putting up monster numbers this year. I think we're going to leave this season with him as the number 1 wide receiver in the country. And I think if I had to bet on a non-quarterback to win it with how the passing offenses are, I'm leaning wide receiver over running back, and I think he's the best one.
All right. I tend to agree with your favorite, Jackson Dart. But if I had to pick another favorite, it would be Quinn Ewers. They didn't have to do as much, but I feel like that they're going to be able to really beat down some teams this year at Texas. So I think I'll have Quinn Ewers as a secondary favorite to Jackson Dart. And then I guess a long shot for me, I still have Cam Rising just hanging out there, scoring touchdowns with Utah. And I think if they can win the Big 12 and get them to the playoffs, that could be an opportunity there. So get Rise at the board. All right. So let's do a rapid fire here, week 2 pick'em. We'll see if we can come back this week with some breakdowns of these games, but let's just do a round robin pick'em right now. Jess, Texas at Michigan. Who do you have?
Give me Texas.
Texas. Jordan.
I don't think I need to say much. We've left. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. Texas, go. Jordan.
Texas. Yeah, Texas.
I picked Texas as well. We'll see what Michigan has in their sleeve. They could bring something out, but. Oklahoma State versus Arkansas. Arkansas did look good in their game this week. I forgot who they played, but they beat the crap out of that team. It was never a bad.
Arkansas, Pine Bluff.
Pine Bluff, right? Yeah, okay. Oklahoma State, Arkansas. Jordan, who do you got?
Go Pine Bluffs.
I'm gonna go the upset, Arkansas.
Wow. Okay.
Dang, going with the upset. I'm gonna take Oklahoma State here.
Okay, where's this game at, Jordan?
Oklahoma State.
Give me Oklahoma State. I was going to pick Arkansas with you, but if it's at Oklahoma State, I think I'm going to pick Oklahoma State. Utah versus Baylor. Jess, who you got?
I'm going Utah. They're just the better team.
All right, Jordan.
Utah. Yeah.
All right.
Easy one.
You're very confident with that pick, it sounds. All right. Iowa State. This slobber knocker should be great. So, Jordan, who you got here? Iowa State.
I have Iowa because that offense is back
That's right.
Yeah.
Best scoring team in the country right here. All right, Jess, who you got?
I'm going with Iowa. I mean, in Iowa with an improved offense. I can't remember the last time they had like an average offense. So if they can have that, oh boy.
I don't think they ever did.
Back in the 50s, 40s, maybe they had that. This is at Iowa.
When they only had to run the ball.
That's right. That's right. It's at Iowa, so yeah, there's no way Iowa State's winning this one. Iowa's winning. Tennessee at North Carolina State. Give me North Carolina State for the upset. Jess, who do you got?
Ooh, give me Tennessee. I think that I just did not love what I saw from NC State. And if Tennessee's going to be back, I think this is where they prove it.
Jordan, who do you got, sir?
Give me NC State. I think I know I talked big about Tennessee, but I think Grayson McCall is going to step it up this game and really show that he's going to be that dominant force for NC State.
When that Heisman starts here. All right, Oregon, Boise State. That's an interesting matchup. Jess, who do you got? Oregon, Boise State.
Give me Oregon. It's Oregon. I have them in the playoff. They're not losing to Boise State here.
All right, Jordan, who do you got?
I have Oregon, but if we get the same Oregon that we saw last week, I would pick Boise State, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I got Oregon. So
if this game was at Boise State, I'd pick Boise State, but it's at Oregon. I'm going to go roll with Oregon. Yep, because Blue Field is deaf.
Aston Jonty, though, going to rush for 7 touchdowns at their home.
Yeah, he's going to rush 7 touchdowns
If
against
he
Oregon.
rushes for 7 touchdowns and Oregon still wins, that also raises questions about Oregon.
It does. So we'll see. But that's the top matchups next week. Won't be as juicy as this week, but I think game day is at Texas at Michigan, so it should be a pretty decent matchup there. Outside of that, you have Tennessee, North Carolina State as a rake matchup. Not much else is happening. I think you probably have to wait till week 3 and 4 till you start getting some more juicier conference matchups. So look forward to those. But like I said, we'll try to get back to you this week with some more deeper breakdowns here. But until then, we will talk to you guys soon. Bye.